let's just take a moment together. Allow your eyes to close. And allow your awareness to just pull from the world around you into the world inside of you. And just allow your attention, your focus, to shift from being anchored in that which is always changing to being anchored deep in that eternal self, that which is unchanging. Can you find that inside? That which is not the blood or the bones. That which is not the thoughts. That which is just isness. It just is. No matter what changes, the weather changes, the emotional states change, the age changes, everything changes. But there is an isness inside, a presence that is unimpacted and unaffected by all of that change. Allow yourself to anchor into that. And as the breath comes in and out, like the waves of the ocean, come into the shore and then go back out to sea. But the ocean never changes. Not on high tide or low tide. Not on the ebb or the flow of the waves. In the same way, notice the breath is flowing in and out. But the internal being is not changing. On the inhale and the exhale, you're the same, like the ocean is the same as the wave flows in or flows out. But notice the inhalation and exhalation. Notice them as flickers of illusion on that which is constant. And as you inhale and exhale, allow yourself to chant silently to yourself a very simple mantra. And the mantra is so hum. So hum. And it means I am that. I am the creation. I am the creator. I am all that there is. I am one with the universe. And just allow yourself very, very gently to chant on the inhalation to yourself. So. And as you exhale, allow yourself to chant very silently and slowly as the breath is exhaling. Just chant to the self. Hum. Take the inhalations and exhalations at your own pace, just allowing the chant of so and hum to chant within you as the awareness becomes aware that although the breath is flowing in and out, you are that awareness, which is never changing. Slowly and gently, bring the palms of your hands together in Namaste. And gently rub the palms of your hands against each other. Press the palms of your hands into your closed eyes. And slowly lower the hands and open the eyes. Welcome. If you already have a daily meditation practice, wonderful. If you don't, let today be the day that you start. As we were speaking on the banks of Ganga in the Arati, it's Dhanteras. It's the day that we celebrate wealth with the awareness that the real wealth is health. that the real wealth is wellness. Physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. And that we find that place of wellness within us, that meditation plays a huge role in it. So let today be a day that you start a meditation practice if you don't already have one. So beginning with a question that has come in advance from our online internet-based audience, and then we'll open it up to any questions that anyone here has. There's a microphone right there, so you can just come up to the mic and share your name and your question. How do we focus on both sides of life, which are true in their own perceptions? And this is asked by Krish on our website. So there's so many things in life that have two sides. I'm not 100% sure which two sides of life Krish is asking about, but I'm going to guess. And I'm going to assume that the two aspects of life are the aspect in which we are soul and we are spirit and we are divinity and we're never born and we never die and we are infinite. And that side of life where we are here in a body. We've got, in many cases, the mouths of family members to feed. We've got challenges and difficulties and ups and downs of human life. We have dharma, our purpose, our duties that we have to fulfill. You can think of them in some perspective. The school of Advaita Vedanta tends to think of them really basically as true, the aspect in which we are soul, divinity, nothing but God, indivisible from God, inseparable from God, never have been anything other than God. And then everything else as Maya, or illusion. It's one way of looking at the two aspects. The dilemma for many people with the practical implications of that way of thinking, as deep and profound and true as it is that when someone you love dies, or you get fired from your job, or you get hit by a car and break a bunch of bones and you're in a hospital bed for a long time, it's really hard to anchor in the fact that this is all illusion. And in many cases, the attempt to anchor in that can very easily lead to unhealthy psychological processes like denial and repression and suppression and spiritual bypass and all of these things that are taking us not deeply into truth, but actually that are pulling us into a sort of half-baked spiritual idea, into a place where it just kind of feels a lot happier because, hey, I don't have to think about this pain, hey, I don't have to do my duty, hey, it's all just God, and so why bother? So that's one big challenge. Another big challenge is understanding the implications of what that means. Because the easiest place that people go is complacency and laziness. I'm one with God, like there's nothing but God, so why do we need more schools? Like, why do we need more hospitals? Why vote? Why meditate? Why do anything? And so if you don't go into that particular truth, under the guidance of a really good teacher who's kind of massaging you along the way and guiding you back along the way, it's really easy to get lost into inaction rather than right action. And they are not the same. So for me, what I have found works nicely is what I think of as two aspects of reality. When I was growing up, we had TVs that in order to change the channel, you actually had to reach out and grab a knob and turn it. And there were maybe 6 or 8 channels, and I'm only 53, I'm not 100, so it wasn't that long ago. But I mention it because I think about these two aspects very much like two different channels on a TV like that. The TVs function the same way, but it's a lot harder to grasp for me when you've got just this little remote control and there's 6,000 channels. But if you think about kind of one of the old TVs and there's a small number of different channels that are being broadcast simultaneously, well, they're all available. It's not that channel 4 starts broadcasting because you reached out and turned the channel. It was on anyway. Somebody in another house might be watching channel 4 even though you're watching channel 2. It's on. The broadcast is on. But your TV is tuned to channel 2 until you reach out and you grab the knob and you turn it, and now your TV is broadcasting channel 4. Now channel 2 is still broadcasting, but it's not the reality in your living room. And for me, that's how I experientially feel about these two states of existence, is they're both here, they're both broadcasting. And it's, for me, about the state of my mind and mindset and attention of which channel I'm going to be tuned into at different times. And I find both of them very true, very powerful, very healing. They both can also make you stuck in their own different ways if you're not careful with your ego and mind and illusion and ignorance and rationalizations and all of that. But I find that there are certain times when it's much more powerful to be tuned in certain places. So things happen in life that are out of your control. Illnesses, death, other people's decision. They leave you, they divorce you, they fire you. They're mean to you. They reject you. You're feeling like a failure in some way. You've tried something, it didn't work. There's a lot of times in which I find that it's really good to consciously turn that knob into the you are nothing but God, you've never been anything but God, there is nothing but God experience. Not as a repression or a suppression or a denial, but as a truth salve. It's an oh yeah, And it just gives you a little bit of spaciousness to take a deep breath, to find a smile, to exhale into a perfection that exists in the universe, even when your most beloved loved one has just died or left you. It gives you the ability to re-anchor in something that isn't changing. Your house has burned down. There's been an earthquake. These are powerful moments to really consciously stay on that channel of, it's all God. I'm inseparable from the divine. There is nothing but God. There's never been anything but God. It's all okay. And again, it doesn't mean that you don't rebuild your house. It doesn't mean that you don't mourn a loved one. It doesn't mean that you go into denial. But it means that your fundamental, deepest level experiential awareness is, I'm not the house that burned down. I'm not even the owner of the house that burned down. I'm not the owner of the possessions that burned down. I'm not the one who's been left either by betrayal or divorce or dying or whatever it may be. I am the one who was never born, the one who never dies, the one who is never changing. And just to re-anchor in that. And then there's times where I find it's really important and really powerful to call ourselves into the body, into the human existence, into all of that which is of critical importance, not just at this particular intersection of time and space, but that is of critical importance for my individual soul as it takes its births and its deaths and its karmic journey. And these are times where you have an opportunity to be of service. People are poor, people are hungry, people are needing something. It's not the time to say, oh, the world is perfect, I'm God, they're God, so I'm just going to walk by them and kind of ignore the fact that the kids are starving. This is the time to be in your humanity. Give them money if you've got it. Give them food if you've got it. Can you do something to support the poor? It's important around times of election. America's facing it, India's about to face it, other parts of the world are facing it. We're called upon to take part. I'm not going to tell you how to vote, but we're called upon to take part in co-creating the world that we live in. And whether it's by voting, whether it's by building our communities, whether it's by giving money to people who are helping the poor or helping the poor yourself, whether it's by picking up trash. Every single evening when I walk with Pujya Swamiji down to the Ganga Arati, almost 100% of the nights, as we walk out of the ashram and there's a 20-foot, 30-foot patch of kind of the outside marketplace that you walk over between the ashram gate and the gate of the arati. And almost every night he will notice a scrap of paper on the ground and bend down to get it. And it's always sort of a rush to see whether is he going to get it first, or is one of the little Vishu Kumars who's with him going to notice that he's bending down and bend down faster and pick it up before Swamiji does. He's an enlightened master, coming down to lead us in the arati. And yet, he's noticing a piece of paper on the ground, a piece of trash. And not just noticing it, but going to do something about it. There is something very sacred about being called into our humanity. And so there's a lot of times when you're in a family, you're getting married, you're giving birth, you're raising kids. Like, yeah, every once in a while you need to get back into the it's all God, it's all perfect, moments. But be in the relationship. Be present there. Experience it fully in all of that which it has to offer you. In the love, in the connection. And yeah, again, periodically, when you notice yourself getting too attached, too wrapped up, too upset, you stop. Switch the channel briefly. Oh yeah, it's just a role I'm playing. Oh yeah, I'm the actor, not the role. Oh yeah. Just a script I've been given this time around. Oh yeah. And then you go back into it. So what I have found is that the way to best deal with these two dichotomous aspects of life, which are each true in their own way, is to live them both. They both have so much truth, they both have so much joy, and they both have so much to teach us in this incarnation. I think the purely human experience without the divine experience can get extraordinarily challenging, painful, stressful. You run the risk of losing yourself in the turmoil, in the tribulations, or in the just kind of decadence, hedonism, eat, drink, be merry, sensual pleasure situation. And in the there is nothing but Godness, I think you run the risk of missing, the joy of a hot cup of tea on a cold day, or the joy of a beautiful hug, or the joy of listening to sacred music, or creating sacred music, or smelling a flower, or planting flowers, or whatever it may be. But I'm very much of the yes and school of the dichotomy of life. Yeah, great question. Any other questions? Anybody? Yes, Jimmy. And then we'll take yours.
Namaste. Thank you so much. When you fall in love in your 50s, you carry a lot of baggage. What do you think are the keys to a successful and loving relationship?
Great, yeah. I know so many people who are currently in a beautiful, loving relationship that began in their 40s, 50s, or 60s, or 70s, or 80s. My great aunt, my grandmother's sister, who's now in her mid to late 90s. Many years ago, after her husband had passed away, somehow reconnected with some childhood love. Like going back to, can't remember if it was high school or college, but I mean, teenage, adolescent years. And they reconnected 70-something years later. And it's been glorious. But I also know a lot for whom it's been in the 40s and 50s, whether it's a second marriage or whether they just never, they were focused on a career and never actually married. Both ways. Yes, you have a lot of baggage, but you've got so much wisdom. You've got so much wisdom, and you've got so much life experience of knowing what's important and what's not. I think one of the great challenges of relationships that begin in our 20s is so few of us have any idea who we are in our 20s. And we're so much looking to someone else to validate us. And so I think that there's actually so many more attachments to how you have to be, how you have to treat me, because my entire sense of self is wrapped up in what you project onto me and I project onto you and the whole story. And I think that by the time we're in our 40s, 50s, 60s, most of us have a much clearer idea of sort of who we are. We're less fragile in our identities. So someone's late, they forget a birthday, they were rude. I think we're much more able to kind of let it go. We've experienced so many people in life. So I think that, yes, there's baggage, but I think that the wisdom and the maturity that we gain can absolutely make up for it. But I think that the biggest key that I would say in a relationship at that age is don't go backwards. You know, when you're in your 20s, you don't have a lot of people to compare each other to. In your 50s, whether you've been previously married or not, most people have had a lot of relationships. And I think it's really easy to compare people to who you've had before. Oh, you know, this one used to do this. Oh, you know, it used to be like that. Oh, why aren't you like this? And I would say just don't look back. Move forward. Okay, you take it for granted. You've each had other relationships. Fine. No need to bring them into the current relationship. I think also you know, in the Indian tradition, the 50s are the beginning of what we think of as the Vanprastha stage of life. They refer to it colloquially as like the retirement phase, but these days, you know, I mean, my dad is still working at 78. Lots and lots of people I know are still working through their 70s into their 80s, even through their 80s. So it's not necessarily whether you're working or not, but it's a different focus on life. 20s, 30s, early 40s, it's so much more about like make a name for myself, become someone, prove myself, acquire things. And in this phase, it's much more about inner growth. It's much more about service. It's much more about like the stuff that really matters. And yet, not everybody's there. There's a lot of people in their 50s, 60s, 70s who act like people in their 20s, where it's all about, you know, I'm the big one. You see this in companies. You see this all over the place. It's like, hey, let it go, for God's sakes. You know, let somebody in their 20s or 30s have that opportunity. You do something else. But not everybody's there, and I think an important aspect of a successful relationship is, where are you both focused on this phase of life? Are you still in the like, gotta have more, gotta acquire more, gotta prove more, gotta do that? Or are you kind of moving into this phase of, what can I offer back to the world? How can I take my wisdom, my experience, my skills, the opportunities the world has given me, and use them now in ways of service? And again, it doesn't mean that you don't work well into your 80s or 90s if you're healthy and loving it. But the focus is different. It's no longer about, gotta have money to put food on the table, gotta put the kids through school, gotta build the house. Now it's much more on kind of the more lasting aspects of who you are. So you want to just make sure that you're both really aligned in that. But yeah, I know a lot of really, really, really successful, beautiful relationships that have started at this phase of life. So nothing to worry. Don't worry about the baggage. And, you know, as you get older, one of the things that we notice physically is it's a lot harder to carry baggage. Right? You get on the plane and, you know, you look for the buff 20-something-year-old and you're like, hey, could you like put this up in the overhead compartment thing for me, you know, my back. And whether it's physical baggage or metaphoric baggage, ask yourself, like, do I still need to be carrying this around? All right, maybe I could, you know, move through the world with all of this baggage in my 20s, but in my 50s, isn't this harming me in some way? Do I really need to be carrying all this baggage anymore? Leave it behind. Or find some, you know, macho teenager to carry it for you. But stop carrying your baggage. Yeah, it's a time of life when you start to really recognize, I've done the baggage thing. Like I get to be free now. I've done it. I've proved. I've whatever it is. Like I've done it. Now, from that internal, emotional, gotta prove it perspective, like I get to be free. Now what I'm doing for me. I'm doing because it's what inspires me, what excites me, what is serving the planet. Let go of the baggage. Yeah, you don't need to carry it anymore. Yeah. Yes.
So I felt called to ask a question for my brother.
Sure.
And at first he offered a question immediately about his stutter, which he's been struggling with since he was...
His stutter.
Stutter.
Okay.
He's been struggling with since he was 5 years old. And today he changed the question and I was very surprised. So I'm going to offer up this question, the new one. How do I become more at peace and embrace who I'm meant to be?
How do I become more at
peace and embrace who I'm meant to be?
And embrace what I'm meant to be. How beautiful. The best way to become at peace and embrace who you're meant to be is to let go of all of the conditioning that tells you otherwise. Until and unless we teach our children that there's something wrong with them, they don't develop psychological complexes. Children raised without the impact, and I realize this is mostly the stuff that fantasies are made of, or maybe, you know, you have an every once in a while special community over here or special community over there. But when children are raised without societal pressure, cultural pressure, familial pressure of values and labels, they will not judge. Tall, short, dark, fair, fat, thin. Nobody's making fun of anybody else. Nobody's feeling better than, until, as the adults in the room, we say things about somebody being fat or thin or tall or short or black or white or rich or poor. We put those ideas in their heads. And we create complexes in our children throughout all of the ways that we raise them. So the way to be free of that is to recognize what are the false beliefs that I'm carrying. So as you've mentioned to me that he does have a stutter, that earlier that was a question. Well, somewhere as he grew, there must have been moments where people laughed at him. There must have been moments, probably other than you. Don't take all the blame on that. Oh, okay, good, yeah. Lots of people, I'm sure, did. There must have been moments where people made him feel less than worthy, bad about himself. They may have made fun of him, called him names. And it created an inner voice. And this is the subtle difficulty, because when we talk about the inner voice, we've got so many voices inside, because we take outer voices and we internalize them. When you hear them frequently enough, or when you hear them from people at times in your life that are very impactful, from parents, family members, teachers, when we're young. So, for example, there is a voice in his head that says, you would be better if you didn't stutter. And what he's going to have to do is look at, where did that voice come from? And how do I know that it's true? There's a beautiful body of work by a woman named Byron Katie, who has taken all of our false beliefs and gives questions to ask about them that help you turn them around. And the first and most critical one is this even true? Second one is, how do I know it's true? And what you realize is how many thoughts we're carrying in our mind that we're living our life based on. Fat is ugly. Dark is ugly. Old is useless and a failure. Is that true? Of course not. Where did we get it from? Why do we believe it? But if you don't examine the beliefs, you take them as truth. Somehow we all have this idea that if I believe it, like if it reverberates inside my skull, it must be true. Is it true? How do I know it's true? And he's going to have to go back and re-remember those first moments when people made him feel less than. And what he's going to have to do is look at those people and understand that every single one of those people was just another human being, scared, confused, insecure, trying themselves to feel good about themselves. And their put down of him had really nothing to do with him, so much as he was just a handy excuse for them to feel better about themselves by putting somebody else down. And the moment that you start to do that, you realize, oh, this isn't even true. And you pick up all of this. So what I would say is he should make a list of the things that make him think that he is anything other than full and whole and perfect and divine. And next to each thing that he thinks makes him anything less than full and whole and perfect, he needs to examine it. Is this even true? Okay. Do I know it's true? And even if it is true, okay, I stutter, fine. Does that actually mean that I'm less good? Of course not. And really start to unpack the belief systems. And it's by removing that which is not true that we enable ourselves to come into the presence of truth. You've got to remove the untruth in order to access the truth. And then it's not even like you have to dig. I mean, it's right there. And so ask him to think about, what are all the things that are really special and beautiful about his stutter? Who are all the beautiful people in history who have stuttered? Who are all the beautiful people in history who have had other issues? They were blind, they were deaf, they were missing a limb. You know, anybody with any kind of other challenge. What people accomplish. And let him really unpack why he thinks the way he thinks. And this is true for all of us. Removing that which is not true enables us to experience the very truth. And what I would say to him is, you go into a flower garden, you go into a fruit orchard. Every piece of fruit is different. Every flower is different. None of them is any less perfect. But everyone's different. And everyone is perfect. And everyone has been created by a perfect creator. And I don't know whether he's religious in any way or not, or has any connection with spirit, divine, source or not. But if he does, on any level, in any tradition, you ask yourself, well, if there is a divine creator, a perfection in the creation, well, then it's saying that the creator is somehow imperfect if I assume that there is something wrong with me. Right? It's like saying God blew it. God made a mistake. Well, there's no spiritual tradition I know of that has the clause or the footnote that, hey, by the way, sometimes, God falls asleep on the job. I've never seen it, never heard it. There is perfection in the creation. And exactly how he is an exactly perfect aspect of the creation. Yeah, it's beautiful. It's God's way of making sure he thinks before he speaks. Right? I mean, really, tell him, thank God you're never going to have a moment in your life where you say something you later regret. Right? Right? I mean, how many of us have said things that we regret? I would imagine all of us. Well, if you've got a stutter and it takes that much work to get out a word, you've got a lot of time to think about the words that are coming out. And I would be really surprised if anybody who stuttered ever said, oh, I shouldn't have said that. Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah. We'll take this as our last question this evening. Yep, you're on.
Thank you for coming. I hope this comes across as quite a light question and not a big deal question. It's about the moment. What is the moment? And
what is the?
Moment.
Moment.
Yes. And how to live in the moment.
Beautiful.
It's a point in so many spiritual traditions to be in the moment.
Yeah.
But perhaps we're not very successful at it and going about it the wrong way.
Yeah.
As a big deal way. So what is the moment? Is it 1 second? Is it my life this year? Is it when I walked through this door? What is this moment? And can we live in it one at a time? Not 3,600 moments in an hour in one go, but like that.
Got it. Great. Beautiful, beautiful question. What is the moment? Is it a second? Is it a minute? Is it a millisecond? How long is it? Can we live in them as individual moments? No. See, here's the complexity. We have to live in the moment, but the moment keeps changing. So the moment you grab onto the moment, you're no longer in the moment. If I grab onto this moment by the time my fist closes, that was last moment's moment. I have found that the very best way of doing this on a practical, technique-based level is using the breath. Because being in the moment requires not being in the past or the future. It also requires not being in your head with planning, with fear, with desire, with anxiety, with any of the thoughts in our mind. The moment you're with a thought in your mind, you're not here. The only thought that goes, with the moment, you could do Om, Om, Om. But even so, kind of by the time you get to the O is gone, right? By using the breath, it's flowing in. So that part that was there before, it's gone. I'm now with where we are now with the breath. So you're aware of the breath as it's flowing in, as it's flowing out. It's a very difficult thing to do in life. But if you can practice it in moments of your day that are dedicated just to that, meditation, mindfulness, time in which you are very specifically not thinking, where when a thought arises, your task is simply to bring the awareness back to the breath, then what you develop is an ability to be doing things the hands are doing, even the brain can be doing. But there is an inner awareness that just is. You'll remember when I was leading the meditation in the very beginning and I was talking about anchoring in the isness. You'll never be there. Right? It's like the mind as you're meditating that goes, oh yeah, I got it now. Oh yeah, I got it now. And then it's over. Oh, this is what they were talking about. It's over. So you want to prevent the brain from getting too engaged, prevent the thinking mind from wrapping itself. Is this the moment, or was that the moment, or is the moment coming? It's fun from a, philosophical word game sort of way, but in your practice, just keep anchoring right now, right here, right here, right here. This breath, this breath, this breath. Be with the breath. Is it here? Is it there? Just where's the breath right now? Where's the awareness of it? Keep following it. Stay with it. The mind will wander, bring it back. And just that practice will be incredibly beneficial to you. Yeah. Thanks for a deeply fun and fun-filled deep question. Have a beautiful rest of your evenings and a beautiful day to our family joining us online. A very beautiful, happy Dhanteras to everybody. And I look so forward to being together tomorrow.